Bismillahir Rahmanir Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillahi wahdah, wassalatu wassalamu ala man la nabiyya ba'dah, amma ba'd. Alhamdulillah, we've been talking about fi'l, which is verb. Look at that slide and you would realize the fi'l or the verb can be divided in different ways into different groups. So it's not just one way of describing a fi'l, as happened in most known language or any science really. So for example, you can look at verb with regards to whether it is present or past or future, like madi or mudari. As you know, mudari incorporates both present and future. Likewise, you could look at that from active voice, active way, or the passive way. Is it active noun or a passive noun? What is the voice? Is that active or passive? You can also look at whether it is 3 root lettered verb or 4 root lettered verb. And those are the only options. You can have 3 root letters or 4 root letters and additional letters. So sometimes they're just 3 root letters, nothing else. Or sometimes they have 4 root letters and nothing else. And sometimes they have 3 root letters plus extra additional letters, and with even 4 root letters and additional letters. So it makes them into 4 categories, but we will cover that later on. And then is it lazim or mutaaddi? Lazim or mutaaddi? Lazim means something which is intransitive, and mutaaddi is transitive. So that is one way of looking at that. And then, is it sahih or ghair sahih? Is it sound or is it defective in any way with regards to its morphology, with regards to its structure? So we cover all of those, and there are many more things that we can talk about with regards to the classifications. So that you have different ways of looking at that. Okay, so you know about sentence or jumla, we call it, which is murakkab tam. Yeah, jumla ismiya, jumla fi'liya. The jumla ismiya is, as you know, mubtada and khabar, but jumla fi'liya is ma'ruf and majhul. So we touched upon that last week. Ma'ruf is active verb. Majhul is passive verb. So active means that there is a fi'l and a fa'il. There's a fi'l, that is active fi'l, which is verb, and the doer. So you have to have the subject. And you do not need to, okay? You can have object, an additional thing, but you do not have to have object. Whereas in passive voice, you just deal with the object and you do not mention subject. Subject is unknown, but the object takes the place of subject and the action is actually done onto him. And here you use a passive form. He drank milk. He is the subject. Drank is verb. Milk is object. This is active voice, straight, where the doer, action, and object both are there. All 3 are there. With regards to passive, you do not have subject. You go on with object. So you say, what is object here? Which was milk. Yeah. So you say, milk was drunk. You use majhul form. So milk was drunk. And in English, they allow you to say by so and so. But that defeats the point. The whole idea is that you keep it hidden, keep it passive, keep it majhul, the doer. Obviously, sometimes you can disclose it because you've already mentioned that, or you really don't want it to be known. So that's what we call majhul. So fairly majhul, where you do not need a doer to be mentioned, although there will be a doer, but it doesn't need to be mentioned. So the place or the space of doer is vacant. So there's a vacancy for doer. You do not need doer, so doer's spot is vacant. So you bring the object in that place. So that is why it's called naib file. Naib file is someone in place of the doer, is acting doer. Is not doer itself because it's actually object. It is maf'ul, it's object. But it is assuming the place of the subject. That's why it's called acting doer or acting subject. Naib file. And then we mentioned second category was it could be Madi and Mudari could be Sulati or Rubai, as you discussed last week. And Amr is according to some another category of fi'l, which is fine. And then we went on to have the scales of triliteral verb, which is in active form, for example, Sulasi Mujarrad. Sulasi Mujarrad. And we mentioned that we always look at the Ain Kalima, the middle Kalima. Ain Kalima, whatever it is, that would dictate. Okay. Again, as we corrected this one in the previous one, so we just, previous lesson, just keep it like that. It shouldn't be marfu, it should be maftuh. And this one should be, sorry, this is maftuh, this is madmoom, and this is dhamma. Yeah, madmoom dhamma. This is maftuh with fatha. And this is majrur should be maksur, because those are the letters mark as opposed to state. Marfu, mansub, majrur is the state. And madmoom, maftuh, and maksur are the signs that they have. And they many times they correspond to each other and sometimes they don't. That's why you have to keep them separate. And then there are 9 possibilities. Why? Because there are 3 categories of Madi, 3 in Mudari, and 3 times 3 is 9. How do you get that? Marftuh, madmoom, and maksur. Okay. In Mudari and in Madi. So 3 and 3. So that will become 9. But in Arabic, you only have 6 which are used. 3 are not in use. And these 3 are these. Okay. This is what we covered last week. So hopefully you will realize that if Ain Kalima of Madi has Fatha and Mudari has Dhamma, this is Bab Nasara, Nasara, Yansuru. If Ain Kalima has Fatha, Mudari has Fatha as well. This Bab is called Fatha on its own, Fataha, Yaftahu. Ain Kalima has Fatha, but Mudari has Kasra. Ain Kalima, again, we always talk about Ain Kalima. Fa'ala yaf'ilu. Then Daraba yadribu. So that's this Bab. These are the names given to the Bab. And then Ain Kalima has Dhamma, and this one has Dhamma. Both Ain Kalima of Madi and Mudari both meet there. Both have Dhamma, then it is Bab. Karuma yakrumu. Other options are not available. So you don't need to think about them. It will never happen. And then likewise, Ain Kalima, if Ain Kalima has Kasra and Mudari has Ain Kalima has Kasra as well, that's a possibility which is here. But if Ain Kalima has Kasra and Mudari has Fatha, that's possibility as well. But Ain has Kasra of in this category and Mudari has Dhamma, it doesn't work. That is, this category is non-existent either as well. Okay, so altogether, these are the 6 possibilities. Active and passive. So we mentioned about active, passive, fi'l ma'ruf, fi'l majhul. Okay, same thing. Naib file. It takes the place of fa'il. The scale of majhul is passive voice majhul. Passive voice. What's the scale? Fu'ila in Madi, yuf'alu in Mudari. It doesn't change at all. Always the same. You don't have 6 categories for 6 subtypes of verbs as we just discussed, but they all come or fall under the same scale. Same scale. Fu'ila yuf'alu. Now you can see that these are 6 categories: Daraba, Nasara, Fataha, Sami'ai, Karuma, Hasiba. And then Mudari of them, Yadribu, Yansuru, So see, always ayn kalima, which is most important to dictate. Yadribu, yansuru. Ayn kalima here is ra. Here is sad. Here is meme. Here is ta. Here is ra. Here is sin. See, all different. So these are 6 categories. If they are similar, you can say, oh, this has fatha and this has fatha. This one is fatha. This one is fatha. Ayn kalima, middle letter. But their madi would be different. That's why their madi here is sami'a kasra, fataha fatha. So this one is different than this one. The combination is different. Okay. Now you may say, oh, this is not middle letter. This is a 4 letter. There's no middle letter is always talking about root letters. Ya is a sign of mudari. Okay. You have to ignore that. We're talking about root letters, which is sin, mim, ayn. So middle letter is this, which is ayn kalima. This is fa kalima, ayn kalima, lam kalima. Okay. So this is how it goes. Majhul to daraba becomes duriba. See, fu'ila, duriba, fu'ila, 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 fu'ila. All are fu'ila. Obviously, some do not come and they're not been in use for some reason, but we tackle that at some point. You might have noticed that Kareem is different than all the others. So they are Darif, Fa'il on the scale of Fa'il, Nasir, Sami, Fatih, Kareem. Why it's Kareem, not Karim? We mentioned that because this is a lazim bab, which we would touch upon today, and what lazim means. Okay. And leave these bits because we'll cover that in detail. Passive voice, the scale is fu'ila. Okay. So you want to say that. So the example is somebody drank milk, yeah? So shuriba, fu'ila, al-labanu, the milk is being drunk. Milk has been or was drunk. Okay, means somebody, the milk was drunk. Who is the doer? See, there's no doer there. It's not been mentioned. But the object, which was al-laban, has been given the state of file because it is naib file. It has just been acting as file. So file is in marfu state. That's why this is, despite the fact this object and object should be in mansub state, this one is naib file and it would take the state of file because it is acting as file. Yeah. Now look at these examples. It would make some, hopefully, some sense to you. So let's look at ma'ruf first on the right. Arabic starts from this side. That's why we always go from right. So ma'ruf, active. Fa'ala on this scale. So there's a akala. Okay, this is fail. This is fail group of madi. Madi, this is the doer. Okay, all the doers. Fa'il, which is subject as well. You can say subject. And then these are maf'uls, which is the object. And we look at that and sort it out if it was passive voice. So here it says akala zaidun. Remember, after fi'l, after verb, if there was anything which is marfu, that would be either file or naib file. Okay. If it is ma'ruf, it is active voice, it would be file. If it is passive voice, it would always be naib file. Doesn't have to be straight after that. It could be afterwards, because you remember in Arabic, position doesn't matter. Wherever it is written, it is okay. Like in English, if I say, I ate apple. So I am doer, ate is the action in the past form, and apple is the object. So I, fa'il, ate, fi'il, apple, maf'ul. Yes? You change the order. I ate apple. If I say, ate I apples, does it make sense? No. Or if I say, apple ate I, does it make sense? No. In Arabic, it doesn't matter. you can change. Obviously, there are certain changes are disliked and they're not proper, but it still doesn't change the meaning. It can still make sense, and that is why it's generally okay. You can say Zaidun akala tufahan, same. Akala Zaidun tufahan, same. Tufahan akala Zaidun, same. Tufahan Zaidun akala, same. It would give the same meaning, convey the similar meaning. There may be little difference with regards to its state or morphology, what exactly is it, or the rule with regards to grammar, but that is different. But it doesn't change the meaning. The core meaning remains the same. Okay, that is why they deal with the signs on the last letters or the state of the word, which state the word is in. So that is why this is akala. So anything that comes after fail, after doesn't have to be here, can be here, whichever position in the sentence, first, second, third, whatever. And that would be the doer of fail. If it is ma'roof, or naib file if it is majhool form. So Madi, there's 6 categories. So akala, qara'a, bana, ba'a, ghasala, nasara. So they're all easy. Fa'ala skill, which is easy because that's the commonest one. Remember, fa'ala could be, mudari could be, yaf'ulu, yaf'ilu, yaf'alu, all 3 possibilities. So that is why that's the commonest one used. Then akala Zaidun. So Zaid ate. Tufahan, apple. So you want to make it into majhool. So see, the scale of majhool is always the same. Ukila, quri'a, buniya, buji'a, ghusila, nusira. You may say, why am I not reading ta and ta there and ta there? Because ta is a sign of femininity. I'm just not focusing on that as yet because it doesn't make any difference. Whether if it's male or female, it's fine. That's fine. It's only the gender which is changing. The rule remains the same. Okay. So, akala, ukila. Akala, ukila. He ate who? Zaid. Zaid ate. Something is being eaten. Tufahun. So, apple. An apple is eaten. Actually, it was because it's past. An apple was eaten. Doer is not mentioned. Here it is, Zaid ate apple. Fail, fa'il, which is marfu, maf'ul, which is mansoob. Fail, majhool, and naib fa'il, which is marfu. Okay, you would not need maf'ul there because maf'ul has taken the place of fa'il, and it is naib fa'il now. And the fa'il has been deleted. Next, qara'at Hafsatu al-Quran. Hafsa memorized, or sorry, read Quran, read. Qara'a for masculine, qara'at for feminine. Hafsa read Quran. Now, what is the object? Al-Quran. Al-Quran is object. Al-Quran is object. It has to become naib file. When it becomes naib file, what do? You give it marfu state. Al-Quran becomes Al-Quranu. And what would happen to qara'a? Same scale. Fu'ila. See fu'ila. So you have to make it quri'a. Now this is ta. Where's the ta gone? But ta was for Hafsa because Hafsa is feminine. What about Quran? Quran is not feminine. So you have to make it masculine. Muzakkar. So qara'at for Hafsa. Hafsa recited Quran. The Quran was recited. Now, the naib file is muzakkar. That's why. You remember Al-Quran is muzakkar. Why? There's no sign of femininity. That's the default. Muzakkar. So to quri'a, we have to make it not quri'at. You can say quri'at ayatun. An ayah was recited because that ayat is muannas. Ayatun with ta at the end is a feminine. Yes, quri'at al-ayatu or ayatun, but not or risalatun. The letter ar-risalatu, if you make it ma'rifa, that's not a problem. But then quri'at, but not with Quran, because Quran is muzakkar. So you have to keep an eye on that as well. Bana Uthmanu masjidan. founded or built. In Madi, built. So Uthman built masjid, a masjid. Tanween suggests nakira. And nakira gives the sense of oneness. So not all the time, but generally. So it's a nakira. All it means, Uthman built a masjid. A masjid was built. So buniya, again, same scale for majhul. Buniya, masjidun. So masjidan become masjidun because it is now naib file. A masjid was built. Ba'a Qasimun sayyara. Qasim sold a car. Okay. Buyi'a, same scale, but that ta has to be there for feminine to show that this is feminine. So buyi'a becomes buyi'at. That's dhahaba becomes dhahabat. Ba'a becomes ba'at. Likewise, in majhul, it would take the ta to make it feminine. Buyi'at. Sayyaratan becomes sayyaratun because this is now naib file. A car was sold. غسلت زينب يديني. Zainab washed her two hands. Washed two hands. Now you have to make it غسلت. Why? Because yad is masculine and feminine. Feminine. Why? Because this is paired organ of the body. Yadan. And you remember in Tathniya, Ani, Aini, Aini. Ani is the sign of marfu state. That is why naib file is in marfu state. You bring Ani. Ghusilat, same scale. Ghusilat, Yadani, two hands were washed. And Yadan is feminine, that's why Ghusilat. Zainab was feminine, that's why Ghasalat. Ma'ruf, Majhul, active, passive. Nasar al-Ansar al-Muhajirin. Ansars helped Muhajirin. Muhajirin is maf'ul, that's why it is in majroor, mansoob state. Muhajirin, una, ina, ina. Majroor and mansoob are the same states, yeah, with appearance. Again, to make it majhul, nusira, fu'ila, nusira. Why? Because muhajirun are mudhakkar, so nusira. Al-muhajirin becomes al-muhajirun. Why? Because this is una marfu state of naib file. This is extremely important to know it. And if you have any question, ask. So the next topic is two types of fi'l, lazim and mutaaddi. Lazim and mutaaddi. Intransitive, transitive. So what that means, there are certain verbs that does not require an object anyway, means it is done on by the individual who is doing it. The action cannot be transited to anyone else. For example, I sat, he stood, he went, she climbed. Well, yes. And likewise, they ate. No, they ate is wrong, sorry. They looked. No, look wouldn't work as well. So how do you know which one is transitive, which one is intransitive? Simple. For an action to take place, there is a subject, the doer, and that action, if it requires an external agent to complete the action, it is called transitive, because the action has to transit onto some other agent. Intransitive, that it doesn't need anything else, it can just complete by itself. The action can be done by the doer itself. So I sat. For the action of sitting, do I need something? Don't say I need a chair to sit on. No, you do not need. You can sit on the ground. And even if you don't have anything, the action of sitting doesn't require a chair. That is the help that you would need. That's a different matter. For the action of sitting does not need anything except that the doer, which is you or whoever, has to do it. That's it. But what about food? Can you eat without having anything? Would that classify as eating. So example, you say, I will just do this chewing. I'm suggesting that I'm eating. No, that's not, you're not eating anything, we know. If you ever want to create this action or do this action of eating, that action requires you as the doer. The action has to come with something that you are eating. Means there is an external thing to the doer, and that is apple, food, fruits, whatever it is. You can't fabricate or you can't create that action, you can't do that action, you can't perform that action without needing something. The action of eating. What about sitting? When you sit down, I already mentioned sitting. Standing, similarly, when you stand up, what do you need? Nothing except you, the doer, can just stand up. For the action to come into being, you do not need any external agent. That is called intransitive. You do not need to transit it to somewhere else, something else. Rather, you can do no need for object. And for transitive, you need an object. You cannot exist. That action cannot exist. You cannot make it exist at all. So intransitive, the doer performs the action on himself or herself. There's no object to transit the action on. ذهب زيد. Zaid went. He went. خرجت خديجة. خديجة exited. She came out. While متعدي is the action is performed on something or someone else. This is an object to transit the action onto. There has to be an object. Ra'az Yusufu Asadan. Yusuf saw. Can you see without there being something that you have to see? You can't see. There has to be something that you see to create or to bring that action into existence. For that action to happen, there has to be an object. Ra'a Yusufu Asadan. طبخت هالة طعاما. Hala cooked food. Okay, let's do some practice on that. Fatima entered the house. Fatima entered the house. Look at that. دخلت فاطمة البيت. Now, دخلت. Fatima entered. To just doing the action of entering, you do not need an object. Although certain verbs like دخل would take some, what we call the adverb, the place where you have to enter. Okay, but that action can be done by the individual on their own. But the place that you have to enter has to be there. So this is slight exception, but we cover that a bit later. Zaid did not sit with us. So ما جلس زيد معنا. Zaid did not sit with us. Does Zaid need any agent to sit down? Obviously not. It's لازم. شربت عائشة ماء باردا. Aisha drank cold water. Does she need something else to create that action, to do that action? Yes, anything. So here, just cold water is متعدي. Transitive means متعدي. لازم means intransitive. Okay. هل قرأت الكتابة الجديدة? Did you read a new book? The new book. Did you read the new book? So the new book. Can you read without having a book? When we say the action of reading, you said that I can read on my own. I can just do reading without looking at the book. Yes? But that's actually using your memory of something that you have read before, or someone made you memorize it. Without something being there, you cannot read. For reading, in that sense, as qara'a, there has to be something that you look at and read. That is why you have to then qualify. If you say he read in his mind, قرأ في نفسه or something like that. You can't say قرأ and mean that, oh, he was doing without looking at the book. ركبت زينب السيارة. This concept is slightly odd. People find it difficult to understand, but don't worry, it would take time, but you keep hearing it. Zainab mounted the car. Zainab, sat in the car. Rakiba means actually to ride the car. So Zainab rode the car, sat in the car. In slang, we would just translate like that, sat in the car. All those mean rode the car. So to ride or to sit, you do not need anything, but you can just sit down wherever you want to sit. The action can be done without, obviously you can sit on something, that's a different method. You can have object if you wanted to, but you do not need to have the object to create that action. Did you come yesterday? هل جئت بالأمس? Did you come yesterday? لازم. Again, you do not need any to come. You do not need anything other than to come yourself. The doer can do everything. أكلت خديجة التفاحة الحلوة. Khadija ate sweet apple. The sweet apple. Khadija. To eat something, you have to have something that you could eat. So this is متعدي. استيقظت مبكرا. I woke up early in the morning. When you want to wake up, you can wake up without having any. So the waking up doesn't require an object. You just wake up as a doer. Subject. هل سمع خالد نصيحتك? Did Khalid listen to your advice? So you can't listen unless something has been said to you. The action of listening cannot exist without something that is heard. Okay? متعدي. Inshallah, we leave it there. And see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhana rabbina rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalam.